Hello and welcome to another episode of All Politics is Local. I'm your host, John Tian. All Politics is Local is a production of the Greater Blackstone Valley Democrats. For more information about the Greater Blackstone Valley Dems, feel free to visit our website at www.gbvdems.org. We have yet another great show planned for you tonight. In the interest of full disclosure, the issue tonight is the Repeal the Casino Deal. Being that I was so heavily involved in casino-free Milford, I want everyone to know that I am on the side of repealing the casino deal. My personal feeling is that we should all vote yes on 3. And tonight I'm proud to have in the studio with me John Ribeiro and Brian Ashmankas, two of the leaders of the Repeal the Casino Deal Yes on 3 campaign. John is the chairman and founder of the Repeal the Casino Deal, and Brian is the field director. Gentlemen, welcome to All Politics is Local, and thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thanks for having us, John.
It's great to see you guys both. Obviously, we've known each other for quite a little while now. Brian was down here during the Casino-Free Milford battle collecting signatures right and left. He was everywhere, it seemed, with his clipboard. Every time that we had an event, Brian and several other people were here. John, I met you through the Casino-Free Milford and through the Repeal of the Casino Deal efforts, and it's great to have the both of you come out to Milford. Let's talk a little bit about where we are and what's going on. But before we get into that, perhaps just a little bit of background. John, why don't you let us know what drew you to this effort and for you, what it means for you and what it's all about.
Sure. I'm a father of 3. I'm raising my family in Winthrop, Mass., which is bounded by Ribeiro in East Boston. For folks that don't know, it's hanging off into Boston Harbor east of Logan Airport, if you can imagine that. And I grew up in East Boston, and so that whole area I consider my hometown and my community. And back about 4.5 years ago, when I really realized that they were planning to put a casino in our neighborhood, that's when I started to get involved and raise my hand and say, hey, what are you trying to do? What are you trying to put in my neighborhood? And having asked questions of the politicians whom I grew up with and knew pretty well, started to get stonewalled and said, you know, listen, John, you don't worry your pretty little head about it. We'll deal with all the problems after we pass this law and put a casino in. And like many folks here in Milford and around the state, I said, let's put the brakes on that. Let's start to talk about that. And that led me to help to organize the opposition in and around the Suffolk Downs proposal, and ultimately led me to like-minded people around the state who were also working to keep casinos out of Massachusetts. And eventually, when the law was passed, we formed the committee to repeal the casino deal and have been working ever since to turn back the law and make sure casinos don't get a foothold here in Massachusetts.
Well, that's great. And Brian, what drew you to this effort?
Well, I've been against casino for a while. I started off back in college learning about the issue, realizing that they ended up being economic detriment more than help. Eventually, after I graduated, I actually was elected selectman in my hometown of Millbury.
Oh, great.
And they proposed a slots parlor shortly after my re-election. Did the research again. I was pretty sure where I stood, but did the research again, realized it was still right, that they were still wrecking the economy, they would wreck our finances, wreck our families, everything. But ended up being the only dissenting selectman against the host agreement. Next day, got a call from a citizen, said, we want to found a group to oppose it, and became a co-founder of No Slots Millbury. In a couple months, we educated the voters. People learned the same things we knew about the negative effects, and we ended up actually pushing them out of town. But in the meantime, I got a call actually from John's group, and actually someone I knew who knew them, and said, Brian, are you against just the Millbury casino or all casinos? All of them, I guess. Why? Well, we need a signature drive director to get us the signature to get on the ballot. And then one thing led to another, got the signatures. Now I'm on as field director, managing the volunteers for the...
And so that's how you came to have a clipboard attached to your arm.
Yeah, 69,000 signatures will do that to you, the need for that.
It seemed like every time I saw you, you had a clipboard and you were just collecting signatures.
Wouldn't be doing my job if I wasn't.
You really worked tremendously hard. So we've got a very full agenda of stuff to talk about tonight. Why don't we dive right in with how's the campaign looking? I know that there's been some recent polling. Ballot questions are notoriously difficult to poll. What are we seeing out there? How's the campaign looking?
The polling has held pretty steady with about 50% in favor of keeping casinos here in Massachusetts and about 41 opposed and somewhere between 9 and 10% being undecided on the topic. I think that's a really good number for us to be starting from. What many of us know is that the more people learn about casinos, the less likely they are to want to have them around. I mean, Everyone wants to be, George Clooney and Julia Roberts in Ocean's 11, but when you realize that we're not going to actually be living in the casino, and we have to live with all the impacts that are outside of the casino, that's when the rubber starts to hit the road, and people, become opposed to casinos and actually start working against them.
Right, and when you look at the amount of money that casinos promise to communities, that money isn't out of their goodness of their hearts. That much of that money is in so-called mitigation.
Right.
Now, why would you bring a business into your town that needs to pay you money to mitigate its effects? That just doesn't seem like something that would really make sense to me to want to do to your town.
Yeah.
It just doesn't, kind of flies in the face of logic.
Sure.
Brian, what are you seeing out there? I know that you're out knocking on doors because I've been out knocking on doors with you. So tell me what you're seeing on the
volunteers
doors.
like you. We're a grassroots movement, so it's volunteers like you and everyone who's making a difference. But what we've all found, and I think you found it too, is we'll knock on a door, and most people just haven't really thought about the issue. They haven't maybe hit their community. We've been out in Grafton, and maybe they've maybe thought about it a little bit. Oh yeah, that thing was in Millbury once. But so that so-called 50% in favor and 10% undecided are really just people who say, oh, it creates jobs, right? And you say to them, well, actually, it actually takes $2 billion out of the local economy, and it's actually going to wreck more jobs than it says. Oh, really? Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, it's going to bring revenue? Oh, well, did you know that Delaware just bailed out their casinos for a tune of, was it 20 million?
20 million.
Yeah,
That's right. They're working on
and so you talk about revenue and jobs, and it actually is the opposite. And when people realize that, when they see that.
Or you look at Atlantic City, what's going on in Atlantic City with casinos closing right and left.
Right.
I saw a great comment on Blue Mass Group a while ago talking about casinos, and someone said, well, this is actually a great time to build a casino, because with all these casinos closing nationwide, think of the bargain we can get on the equipment, right? And then he also said, and here in Massachusetts, we're such history fans. Maybe right next to Sturbridge Village, we could put in a model of what Reno used to look like.
Oh my.
So, obviously a tongue-in-cheek comment,
Sure.
but it is true. Casinos are just closing right and left. The market is so saturated.
And thinking about history, somehow we have this notion in Massachusetts that the 38 states that have tried casinos and the same things happen: bailouts, loss of jobs, closings, loss of revenue, all that stuff. And somehow in Massachusetts it's going to be different, or we're going to do it differently. Somehow, all those states it didn't work, but somehow it's going to work here.
We'll make it work here.
I believe we're a pretty exceptional state. I don't think we can break the rules, economic rules that apply to everyone else.
That's a really good point. We were supposed to have learned from the experiences of all these 38 other states that have implemented casino gambling. Yet, what we have in our casino law is the ability for casinos to give out free alcohol, to be open 24/7, 365, and to give out loans to people directly. And people might not realize this. Part of the business of casinos, when you talk about the rewards programs that they sign up for, when you sign on that dotted line, you're actually giving the casinos the opportunity, the ability, permission to go and check your personal credit history. So this is something that no other business in the state can do. Give out free alcohol and promote it, and then say, hey, you know what? How do I give you a loan to continue playing slots?
Sure. And one of the things that we said here in Milford when we were opposing the casino, we said, well, casinos very often put liens on people's homes if they owe too much money. Yeah. Oh, everybody's on this pro side was, oh, no, they would never do that. Foxwoods wouldn't put a lien on someone's home. About 6 weeks after the vote, there was liens being placed on people's homes in Rhode Island. Yeah. One of the horror stories, obviously, they say the plural of anecdote isn't data, but there were many anecdotal horror stories out of that whole episode. And one of the ones that I read about was a guy. He went to Foxwoods with $3,000 in his pocket, and he was all hyped up about what a great time he was going to have at Foxwoods, and he was going to win all this money. And about 22 hours later, he was broke, and he was drunk, and he was tired because he'd been up for the last 22 hours on the adrenaline rush that you get when you're out gambling in the casino.
Right.
Foolishly, instead of going to bed, he went to the cashier's window.
Sure.
They gave him a $7,500 loan, and he continued to gamble.
Sure.
And about 10 hours later, all that was gone.
Right.
And then he owed them $7,500, and they were putting a lien on his home.
That's right.
For that amount of money. He paid it off, a couple of weeks later, 6 weeks later, 8 weeks later, whenever he could get the money, he got there and he paid them back so that they took the lien off of his house. But the scariest thing was when he paid them back, the first thing they said to him was, well, your line of credit is open again now, sir.
Right.
if you want to go to the floor.
Right, and that is the scary thing, because it's not just a line of credit like you would think on a credit card or something like this. It's actually as if you wrote a check.
Right.
And if you don't pay it back, you've committed a crime.
Right.
And that's why they can. That's why exactly. That's why they can actually put a lien on your house and also on your car. What we found in Ribeiro was that Mohegan's son, who was vying for a license at Suffolk Downs, already had liens on people's homes in Ribeiro.
Really?
And they're 2 hours away. So what's going to happen when they come to your neighborhood?
Right.
They're not looking for, people talk about the big whales that are going to come from all over the world to come to Ribeiro and Springfield and Milford to gamble, when they have all these other places across the country.
Sure, they can go to Monaco, they can go to
Monaco. Exactly,
they
right.
can go to exotic locales like Aruba, or but no,
Right.
they're going to come to Milford, or they're
Right.
going to come to Ribeiro, like
Exactly.
you said, or Springfield.
Yeah,
That
one of the
was
things.
interesting.
One of the things that people, they try to tell us that the additional tourists are going to come here to do casino gambling, and what we know is that Faneuil Hall is the most visited, fourth most visited tourist attraction in the country. I think it's actually 7th in the world, I heard recently. So
Wow.
it's ahead of Disney World, if believe it or not.
No kidding.
Yeah, and there are 21 million visitors that come to Boston every year, and the tourist industry in Massachusetts is about $16 billion. So when people tell me that tourists are coming to Boston for casinos, I said, no, you have it all backwards. The casinos are coming to Boston and Massachusetts for the tourist dollars that are already being put to work here in the economy. So they're just coming as a vacuum cleaner to suck that all out.
Yeah. And Brian, you wanted to elaborate a little bit
I
as well.
I remember another anecdote about that whole idea is that there was the leader in the Palmer group that also managed to stop the casino coming there.
Yeah, just barely, right? I mean, they were pretty close.
It was amazing. They worked so hard in the last few weeks, and it really paid off. But she had said to me once, and I think she said this to other people, that can you imagine some rich sheik in Saudi Arabia going to his wife, "Where do you want to go this weekend, honey? Monaco, Las Vegas, Palmer?" No.
Exactly. It is kind of ludicrous when you think about it.
Yeah.
So basically, I mean, you look at it at a place like Springfield. What kind of a player is a casino in Springfield, Massachusetts, going to draw to that casino? Is it going to be a premium player, someone with thousands of dollars, like you say, the big whales who come in and spend thousands of dollars on drinks and dinner and going out and everything else, and they spend a lot of money at the casino? Or is it going to be the woman with her lunch money, with her grocery money, who can ill afford to lose that grocery money, going and playing it on the slots?
It's unfortunate. When this was being talked about first in 2007, when Governor Patrick, pulled it out of his hat, he didn't run on this, certainly, right? He didn't promise us casinos when people voted for him in 2006 and implemented it, and he was inaugurated. We were promised destination resort casinos that were going to attract people from all over the world and to the historic sites of Boston, and also, by the way, do some casino gambling. Well, if you dig deep into the proposals that are still standing in Springfield and Plainville and Everett now, they're expecting that over 70% of their clientele are going to come from within a half an hour drive.
Right.
So these are people, this is convenience gambling. There was a CEO in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, the Sands Casino, and he said in an inadvertent bout of honesty, said, some people come to our casino 4, 5, 6 times a week, and they lose between $50 and $100. Oh. So, those are people that are, that's their rent money, that's their food money, that's the money for the kids' shoes. Al Cabot, who is out in West Springfield.
I remember Al came to one of our meetings.
And he's also a field director with Repeal the Casino Deal. And he said it really well. We went to a Springfield editorial board meeting, and he said, imagine the person now, that money that Brian mentioned about the $2 billion that's going to be taken out of the economy, that's money that, someone is spending at $100 here at this restaurant, or they're taking their family out to a movie and a dinner at this place, or they're spending it at the hardware store. That's money that's already being put to work. Those are jobs that are already here. They're already being funded by the money that's here.
Right.
Casinos don't have a product. They're not offering a service. All they're offering is the opportunity for you to lose money.
Yep.
I mean, it's not to draw a grim analogy, but it is kind of like a man-made natural disaster.
Yeah.
I mean, when something bad happens somewhere and you have to have millions of dollars of construction to rebuild, well, that's money that's being spent on the economy as well. but at the cost. There's a cost to that. And that's what never has been looked at independently here in Massachusetts. What's the true cost of bringing casinos to Massachusetts?
Even just think back, I mean, I went to college, think back to Economics 101,
Yeah.
right? When I go and I spend some money somewhere, if I go and I go to a restaurant and I spend some money, well, I'm able to spend money for one thing because I earned it
Right.
on my job, right? So I earn some money, so I go and I spend some money. Well, that money that I just spent becomes income to those people
That's right.
that just served me my dinner
right.
or whatever it was, right?
Right.
So now that they have income, well, they go and they spend some money.
Right.
So money, when it rolls through the economy like that, has a multiplier effect.
It absolutely does.
You go and you spend $2 billion in the casino, and they take that money and they go to East Indonesia, where it is that the ultimate owner of this casino actually lives. That money's gone,
And that's a
and
really,
there goes the multipliers with it.
and that's a really good point, because the casino folks often point to Pennsylvania as a great success story, okay? And they've just surpassed New Jersey and become the second most highest, casino revenue earning state in the nation, right behind Nevada, of course. And I think it's 1.6, or between 1.4 and 1.6 billion dollars that people are spending on casinos in Pennsylvania. And what they have there is they still have a $500 million deficit. The property taxes continue to go up. The reason is that money, what you just explained, not only is it income for somebody else, but it's also being taxed again, right? So when people talk about tax dollars, oh, the casino is going to generate tax revenue. Well, again, that dollar that goes from your pocket to the waitress's pocket, or to the dry cleaner, or to the hardware store, that's being taxed again as income for somebody else. So that's a piece of that goes back to the state and pays for much needed goods and services. Again, there's no additional money coming in, so there's no additional tax dollars that are coming in. That's a drain, again, on the tax dollars. And just to put a cap on that, what does that mean for a state like Pennsylvania? Well, Moody's has just downgraded their bond rating, right?
Sure.
So their bond, what that means for folks is that you want to build some new roads, some new schools, some new whatever it is that your
hospitals,
whatever it is that you
bridges,
bridges. The money that you need to borrow to do those things, it's going to cost you more. You're going to get a higher interest rate. It's like having bad credit. Your state now has a bad credit rating because you rely on casino gambling as a source of revenue, and that happens everywhere across the country.
That it just really is ludicrous that people consider this as some kind of a panacea, some kind of a cure-all. So tell us a little bit about your organization. You have offices across the state.
Sure.
What's going on with your offices, and how are your efforts ramping up out there?
Brian, why don't you give it a
So we have two main offices, one in East Boston where the core group started, and then one in Springfield where you have a huge Western Mass contingent, where you have Longmeadow and West Springfield and Holyoke and Chicopee, and they all are so against it. And by the way, a ton of people in Springfield too. The one thing that Springfield and Everett have in common is both their referendums took place very quickly in the summer, or before anyone had a chance to think about it. We all know in Milford and Millbury and East Boston, it was all an education campaign. You had a chance for people to realize. It was they only passed when people were like, wait, what happened? Casino?
They gave us in Milford. They did give us a few months in order to organize up our efforts, and I'm proud to say that we tossed Foxwoods right out of town. That was just it was a tremendous effort here.
They're at their heart.
You guys did an incredible job.
And so we have right there in the center of the whole Springfield, East Boston, and we're going to have we're opening not necessarily offices, but kind of regional hubs, volunteers that will be around the state, everywhere from Beverly to Greenfield to Leominster to Foxborough, all around the state, Taunton, and just where people will be able to pick up signs and bumper stickers. And
So this is probably an ideal time to work in. If my viewers want to find out more or volunteer to help out, how would they do that? How would they go about getting in touch with you guys?
We have a website, repealthecasinodeal.org and .com. They both work. And we also have Question 3 Facts. There's many ways you can find us on the web. We're on Facebook and also on Twitter. And folks, if they want to volunteer or get a sign, that's the best place to go, is to come out to our website and sign up. And one of the things that we're using just to continue the whole grassroots theme of this, because that's really what has done this, right? It's been the boots on the ground. Funny story, we're out in East Boston and Winthrop and going house to house, and we're knocking on doors, and we have people all over the place, and all of a sudden a plane goes flying overhead, and they're spelling out letters, M-O-H, Mohegan Sun, right? So they have planes literally in the air as we're on the ground, so this analogy really holds true. So, I mean, we need folks to get the word out and to go to their networks. Facebook is a great tool for us. Become a Facebook ambassador for Repeal the Casino Deal.
Okay.
We have some great graphics that attract a lot of attention and really send a message in a few short words, and people won't get mad at you for sharing them because it's interesting to look at, just even on its own. So you know, get on our Facebook page and start sharing those things,
Okay.
And we'll get the word out.
Okay, Brian also mentioned bumper stickers. Bumper stickers are one of my favorite things in the world. Any of my viewers know they've seen my my bumper, and it's evolved this year. We've been doing lots of different things with bumpers. Brett, if you could bring up the most recent picture. There's my tailgate. If you want to look at the screen over here.
Wow.
There's a number of those now that have to come off. Unfortunately, Leland Chung was unsuccessful in the primary. Don Berwick unsuccessful in the primary. The rest of those can stay, but if you notice up in the upper left, it says vote yes on number 3.
Oh, yeah.
This is the third question 3 in a row that I'm in support of.
Wow.
And so that one that's up there is from the medical marijuana issue that was on the ballot in 2012. But now we have a new bumper sticker.
We do,
So
and
Brett,
we'd
if you
like
could
to-
cut back to our studio view.
We'd like to present one
John's
to you
presenting
there
me with my
for your famous
my
tailgate.
yes on 3 for my famous tailgate, and there we go. Yes on 3. I suppose it can go right over the existing yes on 3 that's on there, so that it's prominently placed and,
Sure.
And people will see it. One of my favorite things that we did back during the Casino Free Milford campaign was I actually had a billboard on the back of my truck.
Excellent.
We built billboards for the backs of our trucks. Mine just said keep Milford Casino free. It was the same thing as one of our lawn signs, except it was 4 feet by 6 feet. Driving that down the highway was like driving a sailboat down the highway. It was pretty interesting. But I drove that all over town. I got a lot of honks and waves, and people loved it. Very few people gave me a thumbs down or any other one-fingered salute. But I did get a lot of support when I was driving that around town. So I'm looking forward to hopefully getting some support from people around here too. But the greatest thing that I have found about our Casino Free Milford campaign, and I'm sure that you're experiencing it as well, is that it crosses partisan lines.
Absolutely.
There is no partisanship. There is no ideology here.
Right.
My bumper famously has all those Democrats on it. You know, Maura Healey, Elizabeth Warren, Ed Markey, all those Democrats that are up there on my tailgate. And I had the Keep Milford Casino Free billboard. Well, on the other side of the aisle, my friend Steve Treadle had a truck, same as mine, with Romney, with Brown, with Gomez, with Sean Bielat, all the opposing bumper stickers to mine. The thing we had in common was both of us had a little Keep Milford Casino Free bumper sticker, and both of us had the billboard on the back of our trucks. And so we drove those around town, and Steve and I are great friends to this day. We have, our Casino Free Milford has stayed together. We reorganized ourselves into a group called Citizens for Milford.
Excellent.
And we are a nonpartisan information sharing group.
Yeah.
That's what we do. We're involved in Milford politics. We're actually holding a debate for the upcoming election. We're having the state reps, state rep candidates.
That's great.
John Fernandez and Mark Reel are going to be debating, and following that we'll have an intermission, and then following that will be Richard Moore and Ryan Fatman debating right here in Milford in the upper chamber of the town hall. So let me get that a little plug. October 23rd, 6:30 p.m. in the upper chamber of town hall. Please come on out for that, Brian. I'm sure you'll be there urging people to vote yes on 3.
All right.
Handing out literature this time instead of collecting signatures.
So what do you think of the nonpartisan nature? Isn't
It's incredible. I mean, I consider myself a conservative, and I'm working with many people on the progressive left, and I think I've said from the very beginning that honest people on both sides share this in common, because we're all about protecting what is good about our communities, what we have for our families, and ultimately, you know, what we want for the Commonwealth. And you know, I go a step further and say that not only is it nonpartisan, but it's also actually galvanizing.
Right.
It actually brings people together and to solve a problem, because this is really this is the failure of government. This is a failed
failure of leadership. It really is.
It's a
Yes.
failed government policy, and really that's what it is. Because, and wherever you sit on the political spectrum, when you look at what they did, what Beacon Hill did by passing this, and the governor, you can find everything that you hate about government in this law. It doesn't matter where you sit on the political spectrum.
Right.
If wherever you're looking at it from, what you don't like about government is in there.
Yeah,
On the
absolutely.
left,
Yeah,
and
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
if you're on the left and you don't like how government or corporations treat people unfairly,
Right.
and if you're on the right and you don't like how small businesses get a raw deal or families get broken up,
Right.
here with us.
Right.
And
Right. And we were talking, Brian and I were actually out holding signs from 4:30 until about 5:15 tonight over on Main Street here in town. And hopefully some of my viewers saw us and waved. But yeah, we were talking about the only business that would really thrive with a casino in town would be the pawn shops.
Absolutely.
You know, those are the one business that doesn't get negatively affected. It actually gets positively affected as everybody in town sells off their accumulated wealth in order to satisfy their gambling debts.
Yeah, it's very sad. And you know what the casinos promise sometimes is that, well, we're going to bring this huge infusion into the area. And what we know is that they just want to keep people inside their doors and inside their walls. In Montville, Connecticut, which is the home to Mohegan Sun down there, the Mohegan Sun replaced, I think it was General Dynamics back in the 90s, and it took them 10 years to start to generate the amount of revenue, tax revenue, that General Dynamics had been doing earlier. So, and no other businesses you know, join them in their investment there. And you know, when you ask folks around Foxwoods, you know, have any other businesses opened up here? Well, no, but some have closed. We did get a new gas station at Dunkin' Donuts, and you know, the police are a lot busier. You know, arresting drunken drivers around those places. You know, again, you know, they can hand out the day a casino opens here in Massachusetts, there will be more drunken drivers on the roads. 1984 here in Massachusetts, we passed the no happy hour law, which means basically a restaurant needs to keep their alcohol for the same price for 7 days. So they can change it. They can give them away free if they want, but they have to do it for 7 days instead of for just an hour, right? To convince people to drink more and to indulge in, you know, after work, you know, back in the day, how things used to go. But the casinos, and if they do that now, they can be shut down. They can lose their licenses. Well, the casinos, you know, they can give them out for free.
Yeah.
So we know, and that's from 8 a.m. to 2 a.m. that they'll be able to give out free alcohol.
Yep.
So you know that people will be there during the day, and when people are coming home from school and there are kids in the crosswalk, that there will be drunk drivers on our roads.
Right.
I mean, there are some today, granted, but not nearly as many as will be if we open casinos. One of the things back in '84, before we passed the happy hour law, there were it's around 500 drunken driving fatalities every year. And the most recent numbers that I looked at saw that there was a decrease of about 80%. So just over 100 drunken driving fatalities. It's still a high number, but especially in areas where you're talking about putting a casino, there's going to be a huge density of population and of those drunken drivers out in there all hours of the day. And that's a huge problem around casinos.
It sure is.
in
So,
Millbury, they were proposing it right less than a mile from our high school and
Oh, sure.
right down the road.
Yeah.
And
right. Well, here in Milford, they're proposing it right in the middle of a neighborhood.
Oh,
600 feet away from a residential neighborhood.
yeah,
600 feet.
yeah.
That's
which I'm sure no normal commercial business would ever be allowed to do that,
Oh,
but they get all these exemptions.
The Suffolk Downs proposal was within half a mile of 2 schools.
wow.
Half a mile of 2 schools.
So let's talk a little bit about some of the issues that people are seeing nationwide. Atlantic City. Atlantic City casinos are closing right and left to the point where Donald Trump is actually suing to have his name removed from a couple of them because he thinks that those casinos being in such economic dire straits, they're tarnishing his image.
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, Donald Trump is no, you know, role model for anybody, I don't think, even being on the conservative side of things. He's someone who has built his business on the back of, you know, people and really swindling people, if you ask me, with these casinos. And I didn't realize that till I got involved with this. And he's really, you know, claimed bankruptcy, filed for bankruptcy several times.
Several times,
and you know, it's just part of doing business, right? And what these casinos say is that, you know, these families are expendable, and that's, you know, just another topic. But in Atlantic City, the newest casino was only opened two years ago, and the state, Governor Christie, gave them $260 million so they can get open and start generating revenue. Certainly there was in the aftermath of Sandy, and they were in kind of economic dire straits. But still, the state, instead of spending that money on people that actually needed it, gave it to a casino so they can open. and now it's closed. It is literally closed. And now the state is left holding the bag. And 1 in 4 workers in Atlantic City either have been or will be laid off.
Yeah.
And it's happening around the country.
Yeah, it is really awful. I read also about the experience in Ohio. Ohio had these rosy revenue predictions of, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue was going to come into the state. In their first year revenue projection, I think, was $680 million or something like that. They've been open for 2 years, and they have yet to hit that number.
Right.
It's just really, we see these rosy predictions, and people count on them. Oh, I'm putting it into the budget. This is going to happen, and then it doesn't happen. It doesn't deliver.
Yeah, so there's 4 casinos closing this year in Atlantic City. Another one I think is slated even for next year to close.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you go off the strip in Atlantic City, and there's nothing left. There's no like big businesses thriving. It's just gone, and that's the only thing left. And meanwhile, the interesting thing I've heard recently is New Jersey wants to now invest in biotech. Do you know any states that are good at biotech? That
I think academics, biotech, and hospitals. I think they mentioned. Yeah.
Oh, they did.
I was wondering.
Yeah. So,
maybe we should do that.
Yeah, I know. So
You might think about something like that for Massachusetts, right?
Yeah.
So Massachusetts is trying to be New Jersey, while New Jersey is trying to be Massachusetts. Guess who has it?
I remember hearing something. One of our state senators, I can't remember which one it was, but he was at a conference somewhere in Middle America. He was at this conference, and a lot of state senators from around the country were at the same conference. And he mentioned to a state senator from Mississippi saying that Massachusetts was considering casinos, that the casino bill was pending at the time. And the state senator from Mississippi looked at him and said, "Really? Massachusetts? I thought you guys were smarter than that."
That's a great tagline.
Yeah.
We're smarter than that.
We are smarter than that. That's the whole thing. One of the taglines that you've used in the past, I saw it on one of your emails, was casinos are a mistake that we don't have to make.
Yeah. One of the first bumper stickers that I come up with, we had a group before the law was even passed called Neighbors of Suffolk Downs, and it said, "Casinos, we're smarter than that." So
there you go. There you go.
That's worth hundreds of cents right now.
Yeah.
So
hundreds. I could gamble those in a penny slot machine, couldn't I?
That's right.
And let's talk a little bit about slot machines. We had talked earlier about that report, Why Casinos Matter. When we were discussing what we were going to talk about on the show, we talked about why casinos matter. My listeners or my viewers may remember from during the casino fight, I had Jose Costa and Beverly Swimer on, and the three of us dissected a lot of the points of that report. Anyone that wants to go out on YouTube will be able to find that episode, and it's certainly still relevant to this fight. So, but that report, Why Casinos Matter, went into the modern day slot machine, which of course is no longer a slot machine.
That's right.
They don't even call them that. It's a video lottery terminal.
It sounds much nicer, doesn't it?
Doesn't it? Yes, it's a VLT.
That's right.
It's almost like a BLT.
That's right.
Yeah, kind of a nice sandwich.
I'm hungry now. It's interesting. What our proposed change to the law says is that you can no longer do casino gambling. But if Steve Wynn or any of these people want to build entertainment meccas without casino gambling, we welcome them, right?
Absolutely.
Sure, put in some hotels, put in some theaters and some pools and make
an amphitheater,
whatever. It'd be great. And when you really get down to it, when you look at how much space is dedicated to the gambling floor, over 70% of it, 70 to 80% of it is dedicated to slot machines.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So if we did not have slot machines, weren't allowed, there'd be no casinos. Okay. Everything else is geared to the slot machines to get people to be in contact with the slot machines. And if folks are familiar with their kids sitting at home, playing the Xbox or a Nintendo or whatever it is that they're playing, that's what these things are like now, but for adults. And you have to put money in to play, by the way.
Right.
And there are no odds. So when you pick up a scratch ticket and you look at the back of it, it tells you, it's 1 in 1,000 chances to win it, whatever it is. There are no odds on a slot machine. The slot machines are programmed to get you to play faster and for more money.
Right.
So in other words, when you sit down to the machine, I work in technology, so I researched this a little bit or studied what they do, and anyone can find it. I mean, there are patents out on the web that show how they actually work. When you first sit down, it takes 15 seconds for each gameplay. We call it a spin, but it's not a spin, it's just a machine going by.
Yep.
And then the longer you're there, they reduce that amount of time. So you're hitting it faster, so you're losing your money faster. The other thing it shows you is, let's say you're playing the penny slots and you're playing for a quarter at a time. It shows you a result that had you been playing $1, you would have won 50 bucks.
Right.
So next time you play, you say, oh, let me play $1 at a time.
Yeah.
So now you're playing for faster and for more money.
Yep.
And we have a researcher here in MIT, believe it or not, close to Boston, known for academics.
We're smarter than that.
We're smarter than that. Who has studied, the impact of slot machines on what happens to people's brains. It's a small number of the population, but still, it's anywhere from the casino industry will admit to 4% of folks that become addicted to these machines.
Yep.
And take 1 to 4% and multiply it times the population of Massachusetts, you're going to have multiple times the number of jobs of people that are going to be addicted to these machines, and that's what they're counting on. That's where they get most of their money. And what she found is that people get irritated when there's a break in play. Okay, even if they win. Okay, so people that have to go to the bathroom and things like this. I mean, this is a very sad thing, but it happens, and you can go to the Connecticut casinos, and there are people that are actually wearing, adult diapers, so they can continue to play because they don't want to leave that machine.
They don't want to leave that machine.
That machine is lucky, and they get angry when they can't get to that machine. And
I think in the episode that I had Beverly and Jose on, I think on that episode I said something like, if they could install a toilet on these machines, they would.
They would.
If they could somehow get away with that. They would.
People might think, we're exaggerating, but that's, you just think about the whole business model, okay? When the law was being debated, there was an amendment that was put forth to say, you know what, you can't pump anything, any foreign substances, gases into the casino, and that was struck down, okay? So we're not making this stuff up, folks.
Yeah.
This is what they really want to do, right? I mean, everything is geared towards keeping people at the machines.
Keep them at the machine, yeah.
So.
That is really, really sad.
Thinking about the story you told earlier, about the guy who went there and lost 3,000 and lost another. It's interesting to think that there was no point in that story where he's like, oh, and then he won a little bit. No, the way that slot machines are designed, especially the computerized ones, this isn't a game where you could win, you could lose. The casinos know that you will lose a precise amount every hour on the hour. You might win temporarily and go down, but they know precisely how much money they're going to make on each machine every day because they're computerized.
Right. They measure the metrics.
It's essentially cheating you.
Yeah.
And
And one of the most scary things about that report, Why Casinos Matter, playing to extinction.
Right.
Getting the players to play to extinction.
Right.
To the point where you have no money left.
Which is interesting. That's not a term that we've coined.
Right.
That's the casino term.
That's an industry term. That is a
industry
casino
term.
industry term, and it really is just very scary. So for those viewers who want to find out more about why Casino Matters, or Why Casinos Matter, the report, it's a quick read. It's out at AmericanValues.org. It's a great report. I've actually had arguments online. I love to argue online. I go to the blogs and I argue online. It's the cartoon of aren't you coming to bed? No, someone is wrong on the internet.
I love that.
So I have to sit there and argue. But I've had some arguments online, and this one guy was saying, "Oh, that report was debunked." Where? Show me this debunking. Show me the section on slot machines that talked about the design of slot machines.
Right.
How could that have been debunked? This is how they work. This is what they do. The section that talks about destroyed families because money is gone, because college funds are raided, vacation money is gone, children are neglected. Show me where that's been debunked.
Oh, well, just so you know, there's one good provision in the law, in Massachusetts law, and that is that the casinos are required to have a security patrol, go through their parking lot.
To make sure there's no children
left in the cars. To make sure there's no
cars.
children left in the cars.
Right.
Because people have this tendency that they'll leave their kids in the car because they're so addicted to the machines and go in and then forget they're there.
Right.
In the heat and the cold, and
for
you see
hours.
story after story of these happening.
I'll just run in for 5 minutes and see if I can get a bet down.
Exactly.
And then hours later they realize that time has gone by.
They have to patrol. I mean,
that's another thing about the design of casinos too.
Right.
No windows.
Right.
No clocks.
Right.
No way to tell how long have I been in here.
Right.
All that kind of stuff. Flashing lights to keep you adrenaline hyped up. And
even the rugs on the floor. I saw this report that it's to hide the chips that you might drop, and also to make it difficult for you to find your way out. Okay.
Wow.
And just to go back to the slot machines a bit, the field of technology that I'm in, it's business intelligence. So understanding how consumers do make their purchases and what they might want to buy next, kind of like Amazon and things like that. What credit product might be good for you at your bank, based on what you're working on. But the way they work they use it at the casinos is that when a show gets out, right, and everyone's all happy and excited, they will program some of the machines that are right on that aisle to pay out. so that people catch that adrenaline rush that,
Oh, yeah.
oh, this is exciting. Let me go, these machines are lucky. Let me stop and play these machines.
Wow.
You know, and also the idea that if, you know, a couple, and they do this in Vegas, they create the idea of a mini casino. Let's say we all get together, a bunch of friends, a bunch of couples go out, and we're going to go to Las Vegas, and they know that we've booked our trip together. So someone in the group will hit for a little bit to kind of create the excitement in the group. Oh, the slot machine we hit on, you know, and you know it's maybe stereotypical, but women tend to like the slot machines, and men like to take the table games.
Yeah.
And the table games are kind of a loss leader. You imagine, you know, there's an actual dealer there sometimes, and they're actually eliminating them, a pit boss, and they have to move chips around and everything else.
Right.
But if you're there with your significant other, who happens to be a woman who happens to be at a machine, now they know that, they're tracking you by your rewards card that you signed up for and gave your social security number on, so they know that you're married or whatever, and you came together. So they feed you drinks at the table game
To keep you there.
and feed your wife drinks at the slot machine to keep her there, because hey, you have access to the same bank account, and oh, by the way, they know how much your house is worth and the car you rode in on.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah. Everything.
Everything.
Yeah.
And
how
they
many,
know
how many credit card
exactly.
dollars you have in your pocket.
Exactly.
Everything.
Exactly.
They know everything
So,
about you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Scary stuff.
It really is.
Let's take a look here. What else do we have? We talked about the revenue projections in Ohio, bailouts in Delaware. More problem gamblers than jobs. That was one of the frightening statistics out of Why Casinos Matter.
Yeah.
In Illinois, there was a voluntary list of people. The voluntary list was, if you find me in a casino, arrest me. And something like 9,800 people put themselves on that list.
Just like any other entertainment venue.
Against 7,500 casinos.
They have that for the movies too, don't they?
Yes, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
If you find me watching Batman Begins again,
Right.
arrest me. It is kind of ludicrous. Brian, maybe you want to talk a little bit about more problem gamblers than jobs. I mean,
Yeah, it's so interesting. It's so funny thinking about the jobs is the whole notion of that the other side likes to base the thing on. Literally, they're not even using the word casino in
That's
their
right.
name. It's the Committee to Protect Massachusetts Jobs. But you look at originally, I think when they first proposed the law, they were promising 50,000 jobs.
That's right, yeah.
Then suddenly, the literature's changed. Now it's 10,000 jobs.
Right.
Just, you know, out of the blue, somehow, oh no, we love the press release we did. Casino industry misplaces 40,000 jobs.
Right.
But the fact is, it's not even 10,000.
Right.
Because even if they create those 10,000, what happens is they actually wipe out the local businesses in the area. Because you can only spend $1 once, as you talk about Economics 101. If that money is not being spent at the restaurant, at the hardware store, it's going to the casino and then going over to whatever thing. They actually more jobs will be destroyed by those small businesses being wiped out than created. Of course, we know they create tons of problem gamblers, so they could create one problem gambler, and that would be more than the jobs they create. But
Right.
we know we hit a lot more than that.
yeah, it's a net loss all the way around.
Right.
It's just-
And I think what you're referring to is in Illinois, where they have this where you can sign up to say, you know, keep me out of the casinos. They've got almost 10,000 people that signed up for that list, and they have fewer than 8,000 jobs.
Wow.
So, you know, what that means is you're more likely to know somebody that's got a problem, such a problem that they've put themselves on that list, and
Right.
you know that's just the tip of the iceberg, than you are to know somebody that's actually gotten a job from one of these casinos.
Meanwhile, they're laying people off.
Right.
You said the Atlantic City is closing. The Mohegan Sun and Foxwoods are laying people off. Meanwhile, they've actually been laying people off for years. They've just
Right.
been not filling positions.
Right.
Now they're finally saying, "Oh, we actually have to really lay people off." They've been kind of hiding it. But that whole number originally,
Right.
these jobs that aren't
And
going
that-
to be high paying,
yeah, and
worse than the all business
Another
stuff.
thing on the jobs front that we noticed in the battle here in Milford, the way that the agreement was worded was they would hire local people, and they defined local as within a 50-mile radius.
Right.
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 So if you take Milford's town hall and draw a circle
Yeah.
of 50 miles, it includes Foxwoods.
Yeah.
So they could be busing their employees from Foxwoods up here and
Oh.
employing them here and busing them home again.
And by the way, there are thousands of unemployed, experienced casino employees
In Foxwoods.
looking for jobs from New Jersey to
Yeah.
Foxwoods.
Exactly,
You know?
yeah.
And you know the whole idea of the declining revenues. It's because the whole Northeast is oversaturated. And
Yep.
New York Times did a great piece on this, and you know I think it's 24 or 25 casinos have opened up in the Northeast in the past 10 years or something like that. And New York has just passed something where they're going to be able to open up seven more casinos.
Yep.
So, there isn't a tourist that's coming to Massachusetts that's somewhere between us and them right now that there's not a casino that they can go to,
Right.
that they have an alternative. Just to go back to, that's money that's already being spent here. It's going to be pulled out of
Right.
the economy.
Right.
John Kint from the University of Illinois has tremendous work on this, in-depth and detailed, independent and research on this. Said basically the way to look at it is for every slot machine per year, you lose one job every year. Okay.
And they put thousands of those
And
things
they
in.
put thousands of those in. Oh, and by the way, just another little hidden nugget in the law, and I've read the Massachusetts law a few times because I couldn't believe what's actually in there, and it keeps me up at night, gives me nightmares. But when you talk about, they say, well, there's going to be 2,500 slot machines, say in Plainville, where they're already under construction. So now the question is, well, if I have one machine and there are 4 or 5 gaming stations attached to it, that's still one slot machine, right? So even now, and this is another thing that's incredible. We talk about wherever you stand on casino gambling, and you think people should be smart enough to go to the slot, and understand what the slot machines are going to do, and not take out a loan, and people should be able to do what they want to do. This is what our government is doing in our name, right?
Yeah.
Remember that, right? That it's not just another Dunkin' Donuts that you might not like, or a Walmart, or whatever business you might not like.
We already have 5 Dunkin' Donuts in Milford. Do
Right.
we need another, right?
Right.
Yeah, but
But you know what? Hey, if they don't sustain themselves, well, they'll close up,
Yeah.
right? So in our law in Massachusetts, talk about I'm just learning from the other states. People might not know this, but Chelsea, the town next to Boston, back in the 80s, went bankrupt. Okay, and the state had to take it over. It's called receivership.
Right.
And they assigned the head of BU, the chair, then John Silber, who ran for governor and was unsuccessful, to overhaul it and revamp Chelsea, and it has come back in a big way. Well, the casinos have a similar status. Once a casino opens, okay, if you find that you don't like Steve Wynn because the way he's running that business, there are too many drunk drivers on the road, or whatever it is, any of these things we're talking about actually come to pass, and you kick him out, you don't put a padlock on the door of the casino. You put it into what's called conservatorship in the law. So
Okay.
it stays open
it stays open.
while you find somebody else to come in and run that casino. There's
Wow.
no way, even for the Gaming Commission, to close the casino. Okay? Imagine, just think about that. If you are a barber, right? You have to renew your license every 2 years.
Right.
You get a casino license, it's good for 15 years, and oh, by the way, the Gaming Commission will just reinstate it. It doesn't come back before the people. State reps and state senators come back before the people every 2 years.
Right.
Hey, do we like the way these people are doing their job? Why not do something like that, right? If we had to have this, if this is how we were going to do it, but that's not what our state.
That's not what
That's not what
go
they
to
decided to do.
conservatorship. The place would stay open.
That's right.
Continue to create the societal problems that
Exactly.
it's creating.
Right, right.
So let's talk a little bit. We have an election coming up. Obviously, Yes on 3 will be voted on November 4th.
That's correct.
And I'm urging all of my viewers to vote Yes on 3.
Yes.
But
If
we
you don't vote yes on 3, you can't watch anymore, right?
Exactly. So, but we also have a race for governor. It's
Yes.
going to be Charlie Baker against Martha Coakley. We have a
Right.
couple of other candidates in there, fringe
Yeah.
candidates more or less, that we really don't
Yeah.
expect to garner too many votes. But Baker and Coakley essentially have the exact same position on the Springfield casino and the repeal vote. They have both said that even if the repeal vote passes, that they would work to secure a casino in Springfield. Your thoughts on that, John?
Well,
Brian
I
wants to
mean,
weigh in.
I
Brian
am
wants to
just,
say.
I'll throw it over to Brian.
Okay.
I mean, it's just flabbergasting that
Yeah.
they would be so arrogant as to say, regardless of what the will of the people is, we think we know better, right?
Right.
I mean, why not say, hey, Martha, Charlie, whichever parts of the state you win, you can be governor of that part of the state, okay?
Yeah.
We'll just do it that way for now, because that's how we feel like doing it, And they are so arrogant that they want to overturn the will of the people. And the other piece of this is that once you open up the state to casino gambling, you can't stop at just one,
Right.
I mean, the idea that a tribe could come in here, or multiple tribes, and we have reason to believe that there are multiple tribes waiting to see what happens with this referendum, because they will then go off and start to do reservation shopping.
Right.
And you cannot stop a tribe that has land in trust from opening a casino in a state that allows casino gambling.
Right.
Now, it's a long path for them to do that, but again, you can't just relegate it and say, limit it, that we're going to have just one.
Now, I had this conversation with a friend of mine the other day, and he said, well, what happened in Connecticut? Wasn't it true that in Connecticut, they started, for one thing, with bingo? They didn't
Yes.
start with a casino.
Right.
They started with high-stakes bingo, which bingo was allowed
Right.
for fundraising
Right.
activities, right? And casino nights were also allowed for fundraising activities in Connecticut, if
Yeah.
I'm not mistaken.
That's right. And what it wasn't that they had allowed casino gambling in Connecticut. What they didn't understand was the provisions in the federal law that prevented the tribes from gaining land in trust. It kind of goes into an arcane section of the law, but the way it works, and I've been researching this for a long time, is that there is no federal land in any of the 13 colonies, okay?
Okay.
Because 13 colonies existed before the country did.
Before the federal government
Okay?
did, right.
All the rest of the states, the land was given or taken by the federal government and then given to the states. So in the rest of the country, most of the country, when they talk about federal land and federal rights and things like that, that's because that land had to pass through federal hands.
Okay, so that's why we see things like what went on in Nevada with the Bureau of Land Management,
That's right.
et cetera, because of the federal lands
Right.
that are still in
and
existence.
when people talk about, well, you know, we have federal military bases and U.S. post offices that are federal land, those are called, and it's again another arcane term, it's called an enclave. So we're giving permission to the federal government to come in and occupy that land, and they have jurisdiction over it. Like, you know, I tried to go and collect some signatures for the campaign at the post office, in South Station, which they have federal land there, so they could kick me off.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
But if they decide not to use it for that purpose anymore, it reverts back to the state. So, you know, there really is currently no way for a tribe to gain land into trust. So.
Okay. So
A little education on the tribals.
we will see what it's the Indian Gaming Regulation Act, isn't it?
It is, yeah. There's that, and there's other the other statutes that kind of govern this whole process and how that all works.
Yeah, but the most important thing for us right now is let's keep casinos out of
That's
our
right.
Commonwealth.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's another thing too. You know, Massachusetts is one of 4 states that actually calls itself a Commonwealth.
Right.
The others are Pennsylvania, Kentucky, and Virginia.
Virginia, yeah.
List themselves as a Commonwealth, and that term carries a lot of weight with it.
Right.
Commonwealth.
Right. And it's in the Constitution. It's in our Constitution.
And it's kind of like we're all in this together.
Right.
I had an opportunity, being as active as I am in the Democratic Party, I had an opportunity to meet many of the candidates that were running for governor. Don Berwick was my choice. I love Don Berwick for all of his positions, but most especially for his position on casinos, and for being brave enough to stand up and say, no, this is the wrong thing for us. I had an opportunity to meet with Joe Avalon, who was running. He didn't gain enough votes at the convention to get on the primary ballot. But Joe, in his pre-primary stump speech, talked a lot about our Commonwealth. And so when he opened the floor for questions, I asked him a very pointed question. First of all, I said, you know, I've recently finished the most satisfying political campaign of my life with Casino Free Milford. And I wanted to talk to him about that term, Commonwealth. I said, you know, in a state where we rely so heavily on lottery revenues to help us balance our books and provide local aid, we're now saying that we want to have casino revenues to help us do those things. And what ends up happening is with both the lottery and the casino, we end up relying too much on people who can least afford to lose that kind of money. And doesn't that put the lie to the word Commonwealth? We are a Commonwealth, and that's what we need to come back to in all of this. We're a Commonwealth. We're here for each other. Society only works when we all participate in it and make it work. And to, go to any convenience store that has a Keno machine, and you'll see people who can least afford to be losing those dollars. They're standing there watching those Keno numbers and praying for their numbers to come up.
You know, I mean, Stop Predatory Gambling, a national organization that's working on eradicating state-sponsored gambling of all types. Les Bernal, who's based here in Massachusetts, has done tremendous work on this. And you know, before this issue, I haven't really paid much attention to the lottery and what that means, and how we're really preying on folks that can least afford to lose it. But one of the things that I heard that kind of saddened me is that people of a certain income look at the lottery and things like that as their retirement, you know, their opportunity for retirement. Because, you know, that $30 scratch ticket, can you believe that? We have a $30 scratch ticket now, okay? And we're talking about allowing lottery online. This is a counter attack to the casinos, by the way.
Right.
So when you bring in casino or any kind of gambling, it only escalates. It's like
It's a
the
snowball
nuclear arms race, right? It's a prisoner's dilemma. Just to the lottery point of it, you can expect that the lottery is going to be cannibalized by the casino money,
Absolutely.
by as much as 10 to 20%. So a community that's depends on the local aid that comes from the lottery, and that comes directly to cities and towns. It doesn't pass through the greedy little fingers up on Beacon Hill to be reallocated somewhere else, and that goes to schools and roads and police and fire. And those are all union jobs too. Don't forget, when you're talking about union jobs and things like that, that lottery money really supports them. So another big reason to be against this.
I can speak to that
supporting
as
the
a
repeal.
selectman for sure. That's our huge, everyone thinks property taxes, but a huge portion of our budget is entirely dependent on that local aid, which comes from that. And so we can't, if you talk about casinos supposedly giving these mitigation agreements, but they really, all of the towns will lose as a result of this.
So we are rapidly running out of time. Believe it or not, we're down to about 3 minutes left.
Okay.
And we haven't covered a lot of these topics. The land deal in Everett, with the amount of convicted felons, the number of convicted felons that are in on that deal, that's supposed to be absolutely not allowed by our law, but the Gaming Commission kind of turned a blind eye to it. I would urge all of my viewers to go look online for Marty Walsh's letter to the Gaming Commission, where he laid out a timeline of all the various involvement by nefarious characters that should not be involved. That land deal in Everett is terrible. It stinks to high heaven. The Revere referendum, getting a second bite at the apple so quickly after losing the East Boston referendum, giving the folks in Revere precious little time to organize and try to defeat that second referendum. Terrible. The Gaming Commission seems to want to make up its own rules as it goes along, more or less, and devil take the rules that are already ensconced in our wonderful gaming law, this gaming statute.
And that's natural, because the whole notion of the whole Gaming Commission is they are charged simultaneously with regulating and promoting casinos. So there's an inherent conflict of interest there.
And that was another point that was raised in the report, Why Casinos Matter. When you allow casino gambling, you put your political leaders in the position of actually advocating for something that's bad for society. It flies in the face of logic to me. Like I say, we're smarter than that, or at least we ought to be.
And the chairman of the Gaming Commission had to resign. Not resign,
not resign, but recuse himself.
People called for his resignation. Martha Coakley, Charlie Baker, all the gubernatorial candidates called for his resignation, but he had to recuse himself from that Eastern Mass decision.
So just to wrap things up here, it looks as though you're going to be getting some support from both Don Berwick and Mark Fisher, some losing candidates from the gubernatorial primary.
Yes. I and others met with Don Berwick yesterday, and he is throwing his full support behind the repeal. He's a principled candidate, and we're looking for him to help in any way he can, and he's eager to provide that help.
Terrific. And Brian, you've met with Mark Fisher?
Actually, right before, that was my stop right before here, was I met with Mark Fisher, his local business, where he actually makes something, by the way. Instead of,
he doesn't make slot machines, does he?
Yeah, he makes, but I met with him, and same thing, both sport, and I think that goes back to what we're saying. Not only is this a nonpartisan, bipartisan issue, but anyone who's progressive and honest about it is going to oppose casinos because of the inherent unfairness of the poor. Anyone who's conservative and honest about it is going to oppose casinos because of the negative effect on businesses and families.
Gentlemen, we need to wrap it up here. One quick shout out to Celeste Myers, John's sister, who is running for a state rep in East Boston. Good luck, Celeste. I hope that your race goes well for you. You've been watching All Politics is Local. All Politics is Local is a production of the Greater Blackstone Valley Democrats. For more information about the Greater Blackstone Valley Dems, go to our website at www.gbvdems.org. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Good night.